Historically, Chickasaws would have worn pucker toe moccasins as their style of shoe. It's one piece of leather that you cut out that wraps around a foot. It would have been made out of elk skin, bear skin, or deer skin. Chokma Sahoshofoa Ashley Wallace. Today, I will be demonstrating how to make pucker toe moccasins. Historically, it would have been sinew that would come from the backstrap of a deer, and it's a lot like what nowadays we use artificial sinew. In earlier times, they would have used a bone awl, and they would have made a needle out of it, poked holes in it. You can poke holes in it along the way to make it easier to sew it up. Nowadays, we have the metal needles to make it even easier. When I teach classes, it usually takes a person up to 4 hours to be able to make one, less if you have sewing skills. It's fairly easy. You're only stitching 2 times, in the front and in the back, and then you flip it and you're good to go. First thing that I do is measure my foot. You just draw the outline of your foot, cut it out, and then you get a larger piece of paper like wrapping paper or craft paper, but you lay that piece of paper down and then you lay your footprint on the paper, and then you're gonna trace it out. You trace it out so that you can see your footprint on the paper. You wanna have 2 inches or more from the top of your foot, because you could always cut it off if you need to. And you wanna sketch a curve. You wanna go all the way around. You want adequate space to be able to bring your leather piece together. You wanna make sure that it's gonna go over the top of your foot. You wanna go at least halfway. So you sketch, and then you sketch your flap. You can have a big flap, you can have a small flap. Then you can either do one of 2 ways. You can start and do this on this other side, or you can fold your paper in half and then use your pencil to sketch it just like the other side. Then you use your scissors to cut your design out, and then once you do that, you will have your moccasin design. Once you get that, you want to outline your pattern onto the leather. Then you'll have this, and then you just get some scissors, preferably leather scissors, because they're designed for you to be able to cut the leather. And then once you cut it all the way out, you'll have your piece. You want to decide what side of the leather you want on the outside. See, like this, if this is the softer part of it, if you want this to be on the inside of your moccasin, you want to fold it in half with that part showing, and then you'll stitch, because what you're going to do is turn it inside out. And I will use this artificial sinew, cut a piece, separate it. You can get probably 3 or 4 strands out of one piece that you cut. And then you want to knot one side, so you just use a simple overhand knot. I usually tie it about 3 times to make a bigger knot. And then I get my needle, thread it on, and then I'm ready to start. This is where you start at the bottom. You can see where it's to the point, and sometimes it's hard to get through. I just use these needle nose pliers and help push it through. So I'll pull it to the end where the knot is. This is what's called a running stitch, and that means that you're going back and forth. You want to have adequate spacing in between your stitches. It just depends on how much pucker you want out of it. The further apart the stitches are, the more pucker you'll get out of it. I like the pucker because it kind of gives you a zigzag design. If they're closer together, you can kind of see, it kind of just shows a seam. So I guess it just depends on the wearer. And you also want to make sure that you are not as close to this side, because it could bust out. So you want to make sure you're further in as you sew. As you go up, you can pull and pucker, or you can go all the way, like halfway, and then pull to pucker. I'm almost to the top. I keep going with the running stitch, and then I keep pulling it as I go up. So you can see how you can see the little zigzag there. And also, once you're sewing, you want to make sure that you keep your fingers out of the way, because this is a very sharp needle. It's happened to me before. I've bled on pairs. It's just all a part of sewing though. Okay. So I've reached the top. I'm gonna push it through, and this is where you need, a knot needs to be created. So I wanna pull it, but I don't wanna pull it all the way just yet. I want to keep a little small tight circle in my sinew right here, and then I'm going to run my needle through that circle 3 or 4 times and then pull it tight. And you can see it come together. At this point right here is where it'll come up on your foot, so as you're walking it'll kind of help stretch it a little bit, and you don't want that knot to come out. So I'm going to create another circle and then run the needle through the same direction every time so that it creates that, and then pull it. So now I have 2 knots there. So hopefully it'll stay for a long time. I'm going to cut the sinew off, and then I'm going to turn it inside out so that I can get a visual of how my stitching is. It's got a good pucker going. Once you have it this way, that's when you put your foot inside, you want to make sure it fits good, you're good to go, and then what you want to do while your foot is still in this moccasin, you want to mark where your heel stops. So let's say that's your heel, you want to make a mark. Once you make that mark, that's when you'll want to flip it back out to continue with the other side. You will have that mark, we'll just say it's there. I'm going to create the heel, cut to that mark, and then turn it this way, and then you're going to cut the extra off. So you have little pieces, set it to the side, and then you're going to get your needle and thread back, and you want to start next to this little tag that you have, or the heel part, and you're going to push it through, and so you're ready to stitch. And what this part is going to be the whip stitch. So you're going to whip around, because on the running we went back and forth. So this one you're going to push your needle through the same side every time, and you want your stitches to be relatively closer than you would with the running stitch, because you don't need that pucker effect on the back side of your moccasin. So pull it, and you can kind of see how the stitches are starting to whip around. You can stitch it all the way up in line with the front side, and then that way it'll just flip over. It'll sit like this. Okay, I'm almost to where I would like to stop. Once a pair of moccasins is completed, the wearer will either keep it plain, or they can adorn with beads. Historically, it would have been shells, and then after European contact, when we had the trade routes, we would be able to trade for beads, and that's where the glass beads came into play. As a shoe or a foot covering, that's what we've always used, so it's something that's important to keep carrying on. It's a part of our regalia. It's a part of our tradition to be wearing moccasins. I am really proud to carry on this tradition of moccasin making. I was making a pair of moccasins one day, and my daughter approached me and she said, "Hey, I want to make my own pair." So I got my leather out. I showed her the whole process of making moccasins. It made me excited because I knew that she was the one that approached me to ask me how to make moccasins. It's not like something that I impressed upon her. So she did it. She made her own pair. It made me feel proud that I knew that since she knew how to make these moccasins, that she would be able to either show her brother or show her friends, because that's what she likes to do. And then she'd be able to carry it on to one day her kids. So that's just something that was important for my family line, to know that she's going to be able to carry that on.